This is our Swift Basecamp 2. It's a 2020 special edition model, and at the time of making this video the Basecamp is 2 years old, and now it is time for its second full service. And in this vlog I share some of the crucial feedback from the engineer who completed the service. So I've just had the annual service done on the Caravan yesterday. So the annual service is a requirement, or is very much likely to be a requirement of your warranty. So you have to have it done every year to keep your warranty valid. But also some insurance companies are now also looking or asking for proof of annual service. There are two ways that you can have a service on your Caravan. One is you can either book in with your local dealer and take it to their workshop, and the cost of the service will be approximately $280, $290 ish. Or you can go online, go on the NCC website, enter your postcode and find the details of your local NCC engineers, and you can get them to come to your property or your storage and have the service done like we did yesterday on our drive. Now it's come back with a clean bill of health, which is great news, but there are sort of 4 or 5 observations or feedback that I think are worth sharing. When the service is completed, you get a detailed breakdown of what has been found and what's been tested. First item I want to talk about, and it's not directly a result of the service, but actually I booked it in as part of the service, was a repair to the gas pipe that goes between the gas canister and the gas regulator in the gas locker. Now when we were away in Scotland last month, on our last morning we were cooking breakfast and the gas went completely off. Now it transpires that the gas pipe had a split in it. It's got a split in it here, and that gas was leaking into the gas locker. Now the only reason I knew that was happening while I was setting the Caravan was because the high-low valve that I fitted to the gas canister, or to the original gas canister at the beginning of the year, activated and switched the gas off. So what a high-low valve is, it serves two purposes. So first of all, it fits between your gas canister and your gas regulator hose pipe, which was that pipe I've just shown you. And it serves two purposes. One is to give you a reading or a rough idea of how much gas is in your gas canister, but it also operates as a safety valve should there be a problem with the gas, which had happened in this case. So when you get to site and you turn your gas on, what you do is you depress the dial on the high-low valve. You push that down, that lets gas flow through to the regulator, and then it's giving you the reading of gas, but also the valve is activated. If there is a drop in pressure, that valve closes. So that's what had happened. That gas pipe had started to split, the valve had picked up there's a drop of pressure and it switched the gas off. Now had I not had that valve fitted, I'd have had that gas canister leaking in the gas locker uninterrupted. So I would highly recommend on the back of that a high-low valve. You can pick them up from Amazon. They cost under £20, as if I remember. I would highly recommend you get one of those valves. So the second point from the service, and a bit of feedback, was relating to the gas and the gas heating and water system. Now I don't use the heating and water system on gas because I'm always on electric hookup, but when the engineer ran the test, the carbon monoxide measurement inside the atmosphere in the Basecamp was at the higher levels, parts per million, of what's considered a safe level. Now there was nothing wrong with the units themselves. The reason it was doing that was because I don't use the gas. In the burners you get a build-up of debris, or insects get in there, or spiders can make some nests, or things like that are in the burners. So when the burners were fired up, it was increasing the parts per million of carbon monoxide. So the engineer recommended that if I'm ever going off grid, and I'm going to be using the gas, just fire it up for an hour, both the water and the heating, before I go to burn off any of those debris, so that when you get to where you go and you're at the safe levels. So I thought that was some interesting feedback to share. So the third item to share really interesting, relates to the water release valve that can be found in the wardrobe. So that's the little yellow valve that when you get to site, you close it and then you prime your water, and then when you finish your trip and you're about to leave the site, you open it and it dumps all your water under your caravan, and therefore you're not towing with all that weight sloshing about in the plumbing. Now what had been happening with this caravan is, when we've been on site, I'd noticed that at occasion when we got the pump on, the pump would fire up unexpected and be repressurising the system. And it didn't alarm me at the time, but the engineer picked it up on the service yesterday, was that actually when that valve was closed, so it's holding the water in the system, there was a slight dripping coming down from that valve. It was leaking slightly, and obviously the pressure was dropping. That's why the pump was firing up. And what he found was that there was some debris just caught in that valve that was stopping it closing properly, so he's flushed it all out and he's corrected that. But it hadn't been for the service, I would have never picked up on that, and that would have been continued to happen. So just worth checking if yours is the same, that you haven't got some debris in that valve. And he just said you just need to continue open it and close it and flush it all out. So I thought that was interesting to share. So the next item I wanted to share is relating to the damp report. So historically, caravans were constructed from timber frames, and they'd have some sort of outward skin on them, aluminium for example. And of course over time you could get water ingress coming into the caravan, and then you'd start to get damp wooden frames and get rot and all sorts of problems. So they'll do these moisture metings on caravans, and they're measured in percentages. So as a rough guide, anything under 10% is bone dry. Anything between 10 and 20% would be considered as normal. Anything over 20%, maybe under 25 or under 30 at the most, would be, look, there is some moisture in, needs to keep an eye on. And anything above 30% and beyond, 40, 50, 60, that's causing damage to your caravan. Now, this caravan, the 2020 model Basecamp is made from a totally timberless construction. So it's full GRP shell, and it's got a full GRP floor. So even if there was water ingress, it wouldn't cause any damage. However, this kind of construction is totally impervious to water. That said, we've been out in some horrendous rain in the town that we've owned this base camp, certainly in our last trip to Scotland. And also in the wet room, I use the shower all the time, so I don't use facilities at campsites. I'm always using the shower. So I was really interested to find what the moisture levels were in this caravan. And the engineer has done measurements all around the edges of the caravan, in the wet room, all around the floor. There's no need to do the outer shell because it's GRP, they don't need to do that. And it's come back at the lowest reading at 4% and the highest reading at 8%. So essentially the base camp is bone dry. Last piece of feedback, and not particularly great news for us, was relating to the leisure battery. Transpired that the leisure battery was at the end of its working life. Now the leisure batteries are consumables anyway, but this one had burnt out particularly quickly because it transpired that it was the wrong grade of leisure battery based on the hour power output that we use. So the leisure battery that was in here was designed for caravans but not for motor movers. So I used a motor mover all the time and had burnt the battery out. So voltage was good, power output was low. So I've been to my local Halford store already. I've been to the battery section and bought the battery that I needed, which cost over £200. So a bit of an unexpected expense, but now at least I've got peace of mind that I've got the right battery in the caravan. The motor mover is absolutely vital for us, because without it I wouldn't be able to keep the caravan on the drive because of the nature of our road, and then I've got a sort of slight incline to get on the drive, then a gravel drive. Without the motor mover I wouldn't be able to keep it at home. So the last thing I need is pulling up outside the house and the battery not being able to move the caravan.
Replacing the battery was very straightforward. I simply removed the cover, and then next I removed the supporting bracket which holds the battery in place. Starting with the negative connection first, I removed that. The correct tool is a 12mm spanner, but I didn't have one to hand, so I used a pair of pliers. I then repeated that on the positive and simply removed the battery. The new battery was a perfect fit and just slotted simply into place. Next I put back the supporting bracket, connected the positive first, and then repeated the process for the negative and screwed the cover back on. Job done.
So that was the key feedback from the service. Not only is it essential that it has to be done, but actually when you see those bits of feedback, it's really useful to have it done so you can capture anything early, as the service did in a couple of areas. So thanks for watching this video. I hope you found it useful, and I will see you on the next one.